Hello, everyone. My name is Mel Wheeler, and welcome to episode 1 of I'm Not Calling You an Idiot, but Here's Why You Might Be. On today's episode, we're going to be going over the 2020 State of the Union speech given by President Trump on this past Tuesday, February 4th. I'm going to be honest with you, I did not watch the speech on time. I thought about doing it, but I normally do not. However, more importantly, I decided to go to dinner and have some amazing conversation with an extremely cute and super nice guy, to be honest with you. So, I did read through the speech yesterday and did a ton of research on fact-checking things that people have been spreading on social media that may or may not be true from the speech. And I feel that people really need to know what is the truth and what is not. Because it's very easy for somebody to post something on social media and the general public automatically believes what is being shared without doing any research of their own. All right, before we get started to go over the speech here, let's just go over some details. The speech was 82 minutes long. That's the third longest State of the Union address in history. The longest was by President Clinton back in 2000, just shy of 89 minutes. And the second longest was also by President Clinton, but back in 1995, which was just shy of 85 minutes. So now that we have that, let's together start listening to this speech.
Madam Speaker, the President of the United States.
Don't worry, I will be skipping sections. When listening to the speech, there are sections that we don't need to do any fact checking on. I'm on the same board already. Oh wow. So, as I've seen shared on Facebook, Pelosi did reach out to shake President Trump's hand, and he ignored her. Kind of childish, I understand, like, yes, she is trying to impeach him, but we're in front of the entire country right now. Maybe the proper thing to do would have been to shake her hand.
It looks like she went to shake his hand, and he did not take it.
If you wonder what I'm snacking on, Family's amazing Louisville vegan jerky, smoked black pepper flavor at Whole Foods yesterday. I haven't had jerky in over 2 years due to some dietary changes. It's pretty amazing. It's actually better than I remember the real stuff being.
Members of Congress, the President of the United States.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, the First Lady of the United States. And my fellow citizens, 3 years ago, we launched the Great American Comeback. Tonight, I stand before you to share the incredible results. Jobs are booming, incomes are soaring, poverty is plummeting, crime is falling, confidence is surging, and our country is thriving and highly respected again.
All right, so right here, he said we launched the Great American Comeback. To be honest with you, yes, America is thriving since he took office, but what we have to look at factually is the fact that the economy was already extremely growing in output, jobs, and income in the years before he took office. So he can't fully take credit for turning the country around when it was already heading in the direction that it has at this point gotten to.
America's enemies are on the run. America's fortunes are on the rise, and America's future is blazing bright. The years of economic decay are over.
Again, there couldn't have been years of economic decay if the country was on the turnaround in many years prior to President Trump's taking of the office 3 years ago. For example, the gross domestic product, also known as GDP, only grew 2.3% last year. In 2018, it grew 2.9%. In 2015, before President Trump came along, it grew 2.9% as well, 3.8% back in 2004, and 3.5% in 2005. And it's only expected to be a 1.9% growth this year. So honestly, where is the decay?
The days of our country being used, taken advantage of, and even scorned by other nations are long behind us. Gone too are the broken promises, jobless recoveries, tired platitudes, and constant excuses for the depletion of American wealth, power, and prestige. In just 3 short years, we have shattered the mentality of American decline, and we have rejected the downsizing of Americans' destiny. We have totally rejected the downsizing. We're moving forward at a pace that was unimaginable just a short time ago, and we are never, ever going back.
This would be amazing if we don't go back.
I am thrilled to report to you tonight that our economy is the best it has ever been. Our military is completely rebuilt, with its power being unmatched anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. Our borders are secure. Our families are flourishing. Our values are renewed. Our pride is restored. And for all of these reasons, I say to the people of our great country and to the members of Congress, the state of our union is stronger than ever before.
Okay, honestly, the State of the Union is not stronger than ever before.
The vision I will lay out this evening demonstrates how we are building the world's most prosperous and inclusive society, one where every citizen can join in America's unparalleled success, and where every community can take part in America's extraordinary rise. From the instant I took office, I moved rapidly to revive the U.S. economy, slashing a record number of job-killing regulations, enacting historic and record-setting tax cuts, and fighting for fair and reciprocal trade agreements. Our agenda is relentlessly pro-worker, pro-family, pro-growth, and most of all, pro-American. We are advancing with unbridled optimism and lifting our citizens of every race, color, religion, and creed very, very high. Since my election, we have created 7 million new jobs, 5 million more than government experts projected during the previous administration.
All right, let's stop right here about the jobs. Since my election, we created 7 million new jobs. Unfortunately, within that number, he's taking credit for several thousand jobs that were created after the election, but while Barack Obama was still president. The most recent figures show that in the 35 months after Trump actually took office, the economy added just under 6.7 million jobs. And actually, the rate of job growth has slowed down a bit under Trump. See what he has to say next?
The unemployment rate is the lowest in over half a century. And very incredibly, the average unemployment rate under my administration is lower than any administration in the history of our country.
Don't worry, I have a comment on this. So, when it comes to unemployment rate, yes, what he's saying is pretty true. It was down to 3.5% back in December. He also is correct when he says that the average unemployment rate under his administration is lower than any other administration in history. The average rate during his first 35 months is 3.9%, compared to an average rate of 7.4% under Obama, 5.3% under G.W. Bush, and 5.2% under Bill Clinton. However, he's taking a little too much credit because the jobless rate was actually down to 4.7% by the time that Trump took office, well below the historical norm of 5.6%. Since the start of it in 1948.
If we hadn't reversed the failed economic policies of the previous administration, the world would not now be witnessing this great economic success.
So this is where my last comment came into play, that he's taking a little too much credit because the turn was already happening long before he came into office. And honestly, the percentage dropped more drastically prior to him coming into office since him being in office. So clearly what was going on in the country prior to him coming to office is what was really making the major changes. When the rate went from 7.4 all the way down to 4.7, and he's only brought it down to 3.5 to be exact.
The unemployment rate for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Asian Americans has reached the lowest levels in history. African American youth unemployment has reached an all-time low. African American poverty has declined to the lowest rate ever recorded. The unemployment rate for women reached the lowest level in almost 70 years, and last year women filled 72% of all new jobs added.
So, yes, he is correct that the unemployment rate for women has reached the lowest in almost 70 years. However, it's been trending down every year for nearly a decade. The 10-year low was 4.6%, also under President Obama, July, November, and December of 2016. It has dropped further, falling to 3.4% in April and again in September of 2019. The lowest since September of 1953, which is almost 70 years. However, as of December of 2019, the women's unemployment rate was down to 3.5%, which is only a 1.2% drop since he came into office. Under Obama, the women's unemployment rate declined 2.3 percentage points from 7% to 4.7% in January of 2017 when he left office. So yes, Obama was in office longer, so we still have the possibility that Trump may beat those numbers, but in all honesty, more progress was made prior to Trump coming into office than what he's taking credit for in the State of the Union.
The veterans' unemployment rate dropped to a record low. The unemployment rate for disabled Americans has reached an all-time low. Workers without a high school diploma have achieved the lowest unemployment rate recorded in U.S. history. A record number of young Americans are now employed. Under the last administration, more than 10 million people were added to the food stamp rolls. Under my administration, 7 million Americans have come off food stamps and 10 million people have been lifted off of welfare. In 8 years under the last administration, over 300,000 working age people dropped out of the workforce. In just 3 years of my administration, 3.5 million people, working age people, have joined the workforce.
All right, let's talk about this right here. He just said that during the previous administration's 8 years, 300,000 working age people left the workforce. Not really sure what he's considering working age people, but actually the workforce grew by 5.4 million people in those 8 years. So 5.4 added, he's saying 300,000 people left. Pretty sure the addition is what is correct on this one. And you can just look at this lady's face. Same.
Since my election, the net worth of the bottom half of wage earners has increased by 47%, 3 times faster than the increase for the top 1%. After decades of flat and falling incomes, wages are rising fast, and wonderfully, they are rising fastest for low-income workers who have seen a 16% pay increase since my election. This is a blue-collar boom. Real median household income is now at the highest level ever recorded.
Let's talk about that right there. We're not really sure if it is at its highest. It is at the highest recorded, and the reason for that is it's partly due to a change in survey questions back in 2014. Based on adjusted figures, median household income was slightly higher in 1999 than it was in 2018. So what's flexing these numbers is unfortunately a change to the census questioning. Maybe in a few more years things will balance out and we'll know for sure where we are. But again, in 1999, median household income was higher than what it was in 2018.
Since my election, U.S. stock markets have soared 70%, adding more than $12 trillion to our nation's wealth, transcending anything anyone believed was possible. This is a record. It is something that every country in the world is looking up to. They admire.
Talking about wages, actually, he said about flat and falling incomes previously. Unfortunately, it's not true. During Obama's last 4 years in office, the average weekly earnings for production and supervisory workers went up 4.9%. His overall average for the 8 years that he was in office was 4.2%. With G.W. Bush, it was also 4.2 years for his time in office, and they rose 6.4% under President Bill Clinton. And the idea is what they've raised under Donald Trump's regime here, only 2.6%. So yes, anything is better than nothing, but when you try to say that it was flat and falling previously, actually before it was almost double and almost triple under Bill Clinton than what Trump has accomplished here.
New highs. All of those millions of people with 401ks and pensions are doing far better than they have ever done before, with increases of 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100% and even more. Jobs and investments are pouring into 9,000 previously neglected neighborhoods thanks to Opportunity Zones, a plan spearheaded by Senator Tim Scott as part of our great Republican tax cuts.
Let's talk about the exaggeration that just happened on the percentage of increase on stock markets, saying they soared 70%. Actually, it's 45.2% 2% higher than it was the day of the inauguration, and that 45.2% is at close on the day of the State of the Union, February 4th. That's for the Standard & Poor. Under Dow Jones Industrial Average, made up of 30 large corporations, only 45.3%. And yes, it is the NASDAQ composite that's made up of 3,000 companies is up 70.4%.
In other words, wealthy people and companies are pouring money into poor neighborhoods or areas that haven't seen investment in many decades, creating jobs, energy, and excitement. This is the first time that these deserving communities have seen anything like this. It's all working. Opportunity zones are helping America.
So we're going to skip over the veteran section here, as yes, it's very important that things have worked out for the veterans. I have nothing negative to say in regards to this, or positive to continue on with it. If you want to see the whole speech, be sure to go up above to the search bar and type in SOTU speech in full, and you'll be able to watch the entire video at your convenience.
Thanks to our bold regulatory reduction campaign, the United States has become the #1 producer of oil and natural gas anywhere in the world by far.
All right, we are talking about #1 producer of oil and natural gas anywhere in the world. Now, we took the top spot for petroleum back in 2013. We also took the top spot for natural gas in 2009. So, not really sure what he thinks he's done to make us the #1 producer. But production has boomed since he took office. But he hasn't made us take those #1 spots. We've had them for many years. As I said, petroleum 2013 and natural gas more than a decade ago in 2009.
With the tremendous progress we have made over the past 3 years, America is now energy independent, and energy jobs, like so many other elements of our country, are at a record high.
So, just so you know, we are not energy independent. We still have energy imports. On the latest monthly data, current as up to October 2019, that's 6 out of 10 months last year, U.S. total primary energy production exceeded consumption. So clearly that we were importing energy from somewhere to make up for the difference. I don't know how that is independent. Maybe we have a different definition of the word.
Numbers that no one would have thought possible just 3 years ago. Likewise, we are restoring our nation's manufacturing might, even though predictions were, as you all know, that this could never, ever be done. After losing 60,000 factories under the previous 2 administrations, America has now gained 12,000 new factories under my administration, with thousands upon thousands of plants and factories being planned or being built.
Let's talk about the factories. What he's referring to, the Bureau of Labor Statistics calls manufacturing establishments. Most of that growth, which, yes, there has been growth. However, it's not giving the employment numbers or the GDP that somebody that is hardcore listening to what he just said is going to believe. Most of that growth is in these so-called manufacturing establishments, and those facilities typically employ fewer than 5 people.
Companies are not leaving. They are coming back to the USA. The fact is that everybody wants to be where the action is, and the United States of America is indeed the place where the action is. 6 days ago, I replaced NAFTA and signed the brand new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement into law. The USMCA will create nearly 100,000 new high-paying American auto jobs and massively boost exports for our farmers, ranchers, and factory workers.
All right. 100,000 jobs sounds amazing. However, the U.S. International Trade Commission is only estimating the job gains are going to be 28,000 scheduled over a 5-year period. That's not 28,000 a year for 5 years. That's 28,000 jobs over a 5-year period.
I also promised our citizens that I would impose tariffs to confront China's massive theft of America's jobs. Our strategy had...
Talking about those tariffs, we're actually going to be discussing that a little bit in episode 2 because I posted a clickbait post on Facebook, and boy has it gotten some comments. So the tariffs are part of that. I don't really want it to be all about the tariffs, but it's going to be tariffs, aid to other countries, and so forth. Plenty to go in on that with.
Worked. Days ago, we signed the groundbreaking new agreement with China that will defend our workers, protect our intellectual property, bring billions and billions of dollars into our treasury, and open vast new markets for products made and grown right here in the USA.
I cannot wait for episode 2.
As we restore American leadership throughout the world, we are once again standing up for freedom in our hemisphere. We have invested a record-breaking $2.2 trillion in the United States military.
I do have a lot of friends in the military, so I am pretty much for the military as long as we're not abusing powers. And yes, he is correct. We have invested that money.
We have purchased the finest planes, missiles, rockets, ships, and every other form of military equipment, and it's all made right here in the USA. We are also getting our allies, finally, to help pay their fair share. The people are the heart of our country. Their dreams are the soul of our country, and their love is what powers and sustains our country. We must always remember that our job is to put America first.
I do believe that Trump loves America and means well in most things.
A good life for American families also requires the most affordable, innovative, and high-quality health care system on earth. Before I took office, health insurance premiums had more than doubled in just 5 years. I moved quickly to provide affordable alternatives. Our new plans are up to 60% less expensive and better. I've also made an ironclad pledge to American families. We will always protect patients with pre-existing conditions.
But will you, though? Because you've backed Republican health plans that would lessen the current protections for those people with pre-existing conditions. And you've also supported a lawsuit against the Affordable Care Act by arguing the health law's pre-existing condition protections would have to be eliminated. So, is it ironclad? Or you want to get rid of everything that is protecting those people with pre-existing conditions?
This will be a tremendous boon to our already very strongly guarded southern border, where, as we speak, a long, tall, and very powerful wall is being built. We have now completed over 100 miles and have over 500 miles fully completed in a very short period of time. Early next year, we will have substantially more than 500 miles completed.
So, let's talk about the border wall a little bit. Yes, barriers have been improved, um, but most of the construction that has taken place is only replacing existing barriers, not extending the length of miles of physical barriers between the US and Mexico, as most people seem to think. I feel like too many people feel that there is no border wall in places, and that's what Trump is really doing, is building a wall in places where there isn't one. However, as of 2015, there were 654 miles of primary barriers on the southwest border, including 354 miles of primary pedestrian barriers, 300 miles of primary vehicle barriers. So as of January 24th, there is 655 miles of primary barriers on the southwest border. 99 miles of new border wall system has been constructed in place of dilapidated and or outdated designs, and approximately 1 mile of new border wall system construction in locations where no barrier previously existed. So, out of all of that, only 1 mile of wall is actually new, and in a place there was no previous border wall existing. So there really isn't much of an improvement on that front. Also, as we may have seen in the news recently, a bit of a storm situation blew some of said border wall over. So it must not be too much of a very powerful wall, as Trump just said.
Protecting Americans' health also means fighting infectious diseases. We are coordinating with the Chinese government and working closely together on the coronavirus outbreak in China. My administration will take all necessary steps to safeguard our citizens from this threat. We have launched ambitious new initiatives to substantially improve care for Americans with kidney disease.
Talking about the coronavirus for a second, really happy that he's working with the authorities and such. You see a lot on social media about the coronavirus and other viruses. So we may actually have a future episode coming up in regards to what you should and shouldn't be doing in regards to the coronavirus, and how many other viruses that people ignore that are a lot more deadly than the coronavirus is.
Alzheimer's and those struggling with mental health. And because Congress was so good as to fund my request, new cures for childhood cancer, and we will eradicate the AIDS epidemic in America by the end of this decade. And Rush, in recognition of all that you have done for our nation, the millions of people a day that you speak to and that you inspire, and all of the incredible work that you have done for charity, I am proud to announce tonight that you will be receiving our country's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Just so you know, this is the same thing that Rosa Parks received. Rosa Parks, who didn't give up her seat on a bus, trying to shape America to not be such a racist country. And we're giving this same object to one of the most racist people in the business. Just think about that.
That is why I'm also calling upon members of Congress here tonight to pass legislation finally banning the late-term abortion of babies.
Honestly, if we're going to do any banning with abortion, there needs to be more funding assisting women to take care of babies, especially in a situation where it wasn't their choice, especially through rape or so forth. So there needs to be a lot more details on this front if we're going to be getting into that type of discussion.
Whether we are Republican, Democrat, or Independent, surely we must all agree that every human life is a sacred gift from God. As we support America's moms and dads, I was recently proud to sign the law providing new parents in the federal workforce paid family leave, serving as a model for the rest of the country.
It would be good if the US gets something along these lines across the entire country, because America is really lagging behind from most other first world countries, whereas there's maternity leave and paternity leave, and some countries are even matching the two now, so that both parents can be home with the child.
Now I call on Congress to pass the bipartisan Advancing Support for Working Families Act, extending family leave to mothers and fathers all across our nation. 40 million American families have an average $2,200 extra thanks to our child tax credit.
Some of the taxes have gotten a bit better.
We must also rebuild America's infrastructure.
Yes, please. Can you know how many times I had to have rims adjusted because of rough roads in America?
I ask you to pass Senator John Barrasso's highway bill to invest in new roads, bridges, and tunnels all across our land.
Please do.
I'm also committed to ensuring that every citizen can have access to high-speed internet, including and especially in rural America.
This is really important for educational purposes, and so that more of you can do research when you're listening to a speech like this to know what are the facts or not.
A better tomorrow for all Americans also requires us to keep America safe. That means supporting the men and women of law enforcement at every level, including our nation's heroic ICE officers. Last year, our brave ICE officers arrested more than 120,000 criminal aliens charged with nearly 10,000 burglaries, 5,000 sexual assaults, 45,000 violent assaults, and 2,000 murders. Tragically, there are many cities in America where radical politicians have chosen to provide sanctuary for these criminal illegal aliens. In sanctuary cities, local officials order police to release dangerous criminal aliens to prey upon the public instead of handing them over to ICE to be safely removed. Just 29 days ago, a criminal alien freed by the sanctuary city of New York was charged with the brutal rape and murder of a 92-year-old woman. The killer had been previously arrested for assault, but under New York sanctuary policies, he was set free. If the city had honored ICE's detainer request, his victim would still be alive today.
Honestly, similar crimes have occurred by Americans, born in the U.S. Americans, in the city of Baltimore, Maryland.
California passed an outrageous law declaring their whole state to be a sanctuary for criminal illegal immigrants, a very terrible sanctuary with catastrophic results. Here is just one tragic example. In December 2018, California police detained an illegal alien with 5 prior arrests, including convictions for robbery and assault. But as required by California's sanctuary law, local authorities released him. Days later, the criminal alien went on a gruesome spree of deadly violence. He viciously shot one man going about his daily work. He approached a woman sitting in her car and shot her in the arm and in the chest. He walked into a convenience store and wildly fired his weapon. He hijacked a truck and smashed into vehicles, critically injuring innocent victims. One of the victims is a terrible, terrible situation. Died, 51-year-old American named Rocky Jones. Rocky was at a gas station when this vile criminal fired 8 bullets at him from close range, murdering him in cold blood. Rocky left behind a devoted family, including his brothers, who loved him more than anything else in the world. One of his grieving brothers is here with us tonight.
I'm not saying that this isn't a horrible story, because it absolutely is, and we're going to skip through the family section here. However, crimes like this happen pretty frequently in the United States by white Americans, occasionally blacks, but most of the crimes are committed by white Americans when they are at this severity level. So, being a sanctuary city, yes, or a sanctuary state, yes, having this particular individual remain in custody may have prevented this particular situation from happening, but it's not going to solve the crime problems that we have in the United States.
Before I came into office, if you showed up illegally on our southern border and were arrested, you were simply released and allowed into our country, never to be seen again. My administration has ended catch and release.
I will agree that catch and release is not appropriate. However, we will need to discuss at some point the amount of people being held in cages, especially children, and the cost to the U.S. taxpayers on a daily basis. That will also be included in episode 2, because that's part of the argument that occurred on Facebook. So more details to come on that.
If you come illegally, you will now be promptly removed from our country.
Promptly removed. I'm not really sure of the understanding of the definition of the word promptly, because we have people sitting in cages for very long, extended periods of time, also in situations where they are dying in those cages. I'm not quite sure what's promptly about that.
Very importantly, we entered into historic cooperation agreements with the governments of Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. As a result of our unprecedented efforts, illegal crossings are down 75% since May, dropping 8 straight months in a row.
Okay. However, there are technically no statistics on that matter, so we're not really sure where he's getting these numbers from. They did decline nearly 75% from 132,856 in May to 32,858 in December. However, attempted border crossings are highest March, April, May, and lowest in December. So it's not really a decline, it's just the time of year that we're comparing on this one. He also said he says there declined, but in 2019, there were 799,669 total apprehensions at the southern border. That's the highest annual total since 2007, and 81% higher than the year 2016 before he took office. So it's not really the numbers that he's presenting here. Honestly, if you're going to take credit
And
for
as
something,
the
make sure it's
wall
right.
rapidly built on these historic gains, we are working on legislation to replace our outdated and randomized immigration system with one based on merit, welcoming those who follow the rules, contribute to our economy, support themselves financially, and uphold our values.
Honestly, I do greatly agree with this. A lot of people's default is if you don't like America, move somewhere else. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Most countries, especially most other first world countries, have very strict requirements to move into the country in regards to job, income, what money you may have already, and what type of educational background you have, or what kind of skills you have. So for America to move in this direction is probably the best way to go. It is pretty much the standard in today's world.
With every action, my administration is restoring the rule of law and reasserting the culture of American freedom. Working with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, thank you, Mitch, and his colleagues in the Senate, we have confirmed a record number of 187 new federal judges to uphold our Constitution as written. This includes two brilliant new Supreme Court justices, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. Thank you.
As long as they do what's best for America.
And we have many in the pipeline. In America, we don't punish prayer. We don't tear down crosses. We don't ban symbols of faith. We don't muzzle preachers and pastors. In America, we celebrate faith. We cherish religion. We lift our voices in prayer, and we raise our sights to the glory of God. Just as we believe in the First Amendment, we also believe in another constitutional right that is under siege all across our country. So long as I am president, I will always protect your Second Amendment right to keep.
Let's talk about the religion thing. Let's just make sure that all of the religions are covered, not just what someone might think the standard is.
Our heritage as a free nation, we must remember that America has always been a frontier nation. Now we must embrace the next frontier. His manifest destiny in the stars. I am asking Congress to fully fund the Artemis program to ensure that the next man and the first woman on the moon will be American astronauts, using this as a launching pad to ensure that America is the first nation to plant its flag on Mars. My administration is also strongly defending our national security and combating radical Islamic terrorism. The terrorist responsible for killing Sergeant Hake was Qasem Soleimani, who provided the deadly roadside bomb that took Chris's life. Soleimani was the Iranian regime's most ruthless butcher, a monster who murdered or wounded thousands of American service members in Iraq. As the world's top terrorist, Soleimani orchestrated the deaths of countless men, women, and children. He directed the December assault and went on to assault U.S. forces in Iraq, was actively planning new attacks when we hit him very hard. And that's why last month, at my direction, the U.S. military executed a flawless precision strike that killed Soleimani and terminated his evil reign of terror forever.
Yes, this person was a horrible person that needed to be ended to better the world. However, we do have to take into account the retaliation factor, especially when dealing with a country such as Iran. An airliner ended up going down, killing all people on board. as well as an attack on a military base that now has reports of more than 50 military personnel with concussions. And as we know, this has been discounted on the news by the president, unfortunately, as not something so serious. Maybe in the end, what happened will be worthwhile, but as of yet, it really hasn't. It's actually been, the retaliation has been worse.
Our message to the terrorists is clear. You will never escape American justice. If you attack our citizens, you forfeit your life. In recent months, we have seen proud Iranians raise their voices against their oppressive rulers. The Iranian regime must abandon its pursuit of nuclear weapons, stop spreading terror, death, and destruction, and start working for the good of its own people. Because of our powerful sanctions, the Iranian economy is doing very, very poorly. We can help them make a very good and short time recovery. It can all go very quickly, but perhaps they are too proud or too foolish to ask for that help. We are here. Let's see which road they choose. It is totally up to them. As the world bears witness tonight, America is a land of heroes. This is a place where greatness is born, where destinies are forged, and where legends come to life. This is the home of Thomas Edison and Teddy Roosevelt, of many great generals, including Washington, Pershing, Patton, and MacArthur. This is the home of Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, Amelia Earhart, Harriet Tubman, the Wright brothers, Neil Armstrong, and so many more. This is the country where children learn names like Wyatt Earp, Davy Crockett, and Annie Oakley. This is the place where the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth, and where Texas patriots made their last stand at the Alamo, carved out of the vast frontier by the toughest, strongest, fiercest, and most determined men and women ever to walk on the face of the earth. Our ancestors braved the unknown, tamed the wilderness, settled the Wild West, lifted millions from poverty, disease, and hunger, vanquished tyranny and fascism, ushered the world to new heights of science and medicine, laid down the railroads, dug out the canals, raised up the skyscrapers, and ladies and gentlemen, our ancestors built the most exceptional republic ever to exist in all of human history, and we are making it greater than ever before. This is our glorious and magnificent inheritance. We are Americans. We are pioneers. We are the pathfinders. We settled the new world. We built the modern world. And we changed history forever by embracing the eternal truth that everyone is made equal by the hand of Almighty God. America is the place where anything can happen. America is the place where anyone can rise. And here, on this land, on this soil, on this continent, the most incredible dreams come true. This nation is our canvas, and this country is our masterpiece. Our brightest discoveries are not yet known. Our most thrilling stories are not yet told. Our grandest journeys are not yet made. The American age, the American epic, the American adventure has only just begun. Shining. And my fellow Americans, the best is yet to come. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Yes, she just did that. And the reason she tore up those papers is a symbolism of shredding. And that'll be part of episode 2 as well, as to why doing that was not illegal. So, research from today's video, compliments of Bureau of Economic Affairs, Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Wall Street Journal, U.S. International Trade Commission, the White House, U.S. Office of Trade Representative, New York Times, Census Bureau, from the U.S. obviously, U.S. Government Accountability Office, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, factcheck.org, U.S. News and World Report, Yahoo Finance, the EIA, Fidelity Investments, National Bureau of Economic Research, Retire Ready Solutions, and once again the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. If you like this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up and a share as to why you liked it. If you didn't like it, be sure to give it a thumbs down and also a share as to why you didn't like it. And be sure to hit that big red subscribe button so you can see all future videos going forward. Thank you for watching.